SAFE Act, big issue at the national level. Are you involved in that debate? And is there anything in the legislation that you are seeing that is a good election reform at the federal level that maybe is worthy of bringing to California or not? I guess I asked you two questions. Are you involved in any way? And then is there any morsel of good policy out of it, and what can it mean for California?
Well, you know, California is the largest voting base in the nation. We have the largest voting base in the nation. So clearly anything that is proposed at the federal level or even at the state level has some impact upon California. So yeah, we are involved. Probably if you look and just try to follow the list, you will always see DOJ versus Shirley Weber, Donald Trump versus Shirley Weber. I think we just, after the election, we just hit 22 or 23 lawsuits that we filed and won. And so yeah, I'm kind of involved.
Litigation.
Yeah, I'm kind of involved. That's there. One of the challenges we face, and I guess some of it does come out of my own personal background of being concerned about making sure you don't lock out too many people from the election process. You know, that you can create rules and regulations, like you can have, situations where you want to have a lot of identification and what have you, and then a whole lot of people don't vote. It's like, you know, the Voting Rights Act and the various kinds of things that had literacy tests. So it sounds good on the surface that you should be able to read in order to vote. Sounds great. But then when you begin to apply it, and you discover that in order to be able to get that, you have to read at a higher level than somebody else, as we've seen how it's been implemented. So a lot of the things on the surface don't sound really bad, but when you begin to implement them, that becomes a problem. That's number one. Number two, there are a lot of things that are often proposed that there's no reason for it. You can have these things, but the question for me is always, is it gonna make it better? Are we solving a problem that we have? You know, if we have a problem, what is the problem, and then what is the solution? And people will often say things like, you know, there are X number of this, that, or the other voters, and only to discover that that's really not very true, and there's no data, no information for it. So we have to be careful of this system that is, it's a very special system, our voting system. It empowers the people to have their voice heard. And if we treat it right, those voices will be heard and adhered to in policy and programs. So I don't dismiss everything that comes out that says it's bad. I always ask the question, what is the problem that it's going to solve? Because when you're manipulating 40 million people into a voting system, you have to make sure that you know where you want to go, what the problem is, and is this the solution to it?
And the consequences.
And the consequences of it, yes.
Let me take one of those from the SAFE Act, and it's identification. Either for registering to vote or to vote. Now, New Jersey came up in the news in the last several weeks, having over 6,000 folks who were non-citizens on the voter rolls. We'll talk about that. But in order to register to vote, do you think there needs to be is there any benefit to having an ID and to voting? Is there any of that? And there's not taking a position on the voter ID initiative that's coming up on that.
Right. The question is, how many of you actually registered to vote and had to have no ID? Ta-ta! Okay, now, why do I need a voter ID system? See, this is what I'm talking about. It's not the fact that voter IDs are bad. The question becomes, don't we already have that? You know? And if we don't, it may be imperfect in a few ways, but we can solve those issues. You know, maybe you don't have your birth certificate because you're from wherever, but you have other forms of identification that we talked about earlier that happens in other countries where you have to have things. And people have to have those levels of, my parents were born by sharecrop, by midwives. My dad didn't have a birth certificate, but you can find him listed on various lists in terms of the census records in the 1920s and on and on and on. So all I'm saying is that when I asked that question, we said, don't you need a voter ID? We must, because we do it.
So and that is that when you go to register, you have to tell folks the ID.
You have to have a different, if you go to register, you have to You gotta have a birth certificate, you gotta have some form of ID. Now they're looking at maybe the California, the election, the thing that the real ID thing that may happen. But you have to have that. If you don't have it and you fill out all these forms, you cannot vote until you bring in that documentation that you have. So we don't have people that just walk, people may act like we just have people walk down the street and, oh, look, they got registration, let me go get me one, you know? And that it just happens and then no one asks any questions. You've got all this identification, and we take your ID, we have the voter system that basically takes our ID, keeps it. When, if you have, voter, and then if you end up with a situation where someone dies, those legislature's written plenty of bills that tell you how this is supposed to be sent from this group to that group, eventually to the county to be removed, okay? So, and it may take, and some people say, well, he died yesterday, and okay, it takes a little bit of a minute to get from one place to the next, okay? And if for some reason there's a glitch in the system and you call us and let us know that, people will respond to it. Will we take, if someone calls and says you're on the voting rolls, this person should be taken off. We're not gonna take you off because they told us to. You have to verify that. And if we end up with some data that the person hasn't voted in a long time, we can't figure it out, we don't just toss you off like some states. We put you in an inactive file. And only when you come back, or whatever you're doing, can you actually come and, and reactivate your registration. So we have a system that's there. And is there ever imperfection in the system? We have 40 million Californians. There's gonna be some. There will be consequences for imperfections if people implement themselves.
Well, the federal level is accusing states of having too many non-citizens on their voter rolls.
That's what they said.
And by the way, I think California's got a terrific system, and so I think we're doing well. Just put that out there. But
Yeah.
I mentioned New Jersey because they'll do that. How are California's voter rolls? What is our strength?
Yeah, California Jersey had a problem with machines that were broken, and they were not. It was a machine issue, not necessarily just people, but it was a machine issue. We have a great voter system in terms of people being registered to vote, as I said, and if you're not supposed to be registered to vote, you will be taken off. If you're found to be a person who is illegally registered to vote, you'll be taken off. If it's intentional that you did that and not just an error that you made on the registered voter system, you'll be prosecuted. You get a felony for registering to vote and not being a citizen in California. So there are consequences for it. And we do have folks who may turn folks in or do various things, and we have ways in which we investigate. We have investigative staff that looks at those things. But we don't have millions and millions of people who are not registered to vote as we often hear. And we always ask when people tell us that, could you at least give me the name of one?
Well,
I'm still waiting.
Now, mail-in ballots. There are different proposals. They're automatically sent to registered voters now, folks who are automatically registered to vote as well in California. There are proposals out there is there any more security we can have on those? Because you do hear criticisms about mail-in ballots, that someone can get a hold of it and cast your ballot for you, or you can ask for one that doesn't belong to you. Put an identification number on that.
Yeah.
Anything with mail-in ballots that you could see as an area of improvement in California?
We have a lot of folks who make those allegations, where somebody could actually steal your ballot, somebody could do this, could do that, and so forth and so on. And that is of course a criminal offense as well. We don't have a whole lot of people running around with ballots that are stolen. We've had sheriffs who've taken ballots in Riverside, we know that illegally, but that was after the election, and so that's the only people supposed to be protecting us and fighting against us all the time. But at the same time, we have ways in which we, when people say we have these ballots, and we have to make sure that the ballot that comes in is the person who's voting, and the way you do that is basically the ballot comes, we have to verify the signature, it has to be on there. That person's signature, we have machines, and you can go see, any of you can go see any of this at any registered voter office if you want to see it. The machines are there, you can see exactly how they're looking at the thing. If the ID is not on it, or something happens with the ballot, and they don't sign the ballot, then we have to cure it, we have to go back and look for that ballot. We don't just say, oh, well, you forgot to sign the ballot, so you're not a voter this time. No, we call you. We give 3 chances, we send you a letter saying your ballot, you need to come and get your, and make it, renew your signature or do whatever it is. We give you 3 chances to actually come, and that's, and people are saying, well, you should just throw them out. Why should we throw them out? People have expressed their interest. We want their vote to count, whether they're Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever it is. So our folks will actually go and try to find you, call you, send you a letter, telling you to come and basically correct your ballot that's there. So we do that to make sure that the person who's sending the ballot is actually the person who should be voting. And so as a result, you can steal a ballot and you can't sign a signature. You can't, it won't be, someone says we can put, all different kinds of paper, not going through the machines. Every machine is verified before it's even used.
And
so
you can watch that.
And you can watch all of this. And all of that stuff is there. So we do that to protect California and to make sure that your vote counts, that it gets where it needs to be, and that you're the person who's doing it. And if anyone decides to do something elsewise, we're basically going to prosecute them for a felony, because that's what it is. And so, so we don't really have it's not, no system is perfect. And when we find glitches in our system, we want to improve it when we can and make it better for everybody that's involved in elections. But all of the things that we've heard about, the horror stories, the 190 ballots that are whatever, all those things, we have only asked for one thing: give us the verification and the information. And we have yet to get that.
All right, next one. Last one on the election. I'm geeking out about my own little pet issues here, and that is ballot counting in California. It takes some time. I think we can anticipate there will be criticisms coming into us about that afterwards. But that's part of the having vote by mail ballots and going through the precision of checking signatures and making sure that the person who cast the vote is the person who's on the rolls and so on. Any improvements with counting of ballots that we can do that you can lead in your office?
Well, it's interesting that we did do an improvement this year and everybody ignored it. But, and I say that because we had one, remember? Now, some of you probably don't even know it took place, but they wanted all the results in 13 days.
Yes.
Okay. So everybody's clamoring, we want fast, we want fast, we want fast, 13 days. So the 13 days comes, my office sends out a press release letting them know that the 13 days has come, the data is available, da-da-da-da. Not a press person covered the story. Nobody said a word, and they've been jumping up all day long scratching about we gotta have faster, faster, faster. And I said, faster what? So I've also, begun asking my staff to look around in other states, and I discovered that the reason why people look at us and say we're slower, one, we're bigger, okay, and we do have to verify every piece of mail. If you want to make sure that we are actually counting your ballot, we have to verify that. It's not just people throw things and we just count them when they come out. We have to make sure that you are the person who's actually submitting that ballot. So we have those safeguards in it, and then we have this curing of ballots. As I said, when people don't sign them, they go in a special pile, and after all of that, we have to go back, and that's why you see numbers changing. We have to go back and find those people, have them turn their ballots back in. So we do a significant process. So the 13 days was one way we were going to improve, and we did the 13 days. Things got out in 13 days, but we still had a whole lot of ballots to count. And what you'll discover when you start looking around is that many of the other states have not finished their counting, but they report. And we don't, we by law say you have to have 30 days to do this work and get it all done to actually certify the election, and that's what we do. But if you want to know who won, all you have to do is go to our website. Go to your county office, and what you will discover on the walls are all the elections and the numbers. And the vast majority of those are correct. Every now and then there's an election where two people are fighting over 100 ballots. This one versus that one, and this one versus that one. But when you were elected, when I was elected, somebody called me the next morning, the speaker said, you gotta come to lunch tomorrow because you've been elected to office. Now, how you gonna elect me in a day? But if you look at the data, you see that almost all the ballots are counted.
Yeah, the best races are the ones that are over.
Yes, and they're over. Yeah, they're over. And so we end up with one generally in where that little county where they go back and forth, and you win today, he wins tomorrow, you win the next day, and eventually you get to the very end, and you almost have to go to the last ballot because it's usually maybe 100 votes difference. But when you look at the numbers that are there, and we put them out there for you to see, You see the number of ballots that are there, you see how many have been counted, what is left, and when you start looking at the numbers, you discover that this person who is winning cannot be caught because the number of ballots is not enough for this other person to win.
I'm gonna look ahead now, okay? Priorities for your last term. This is your last term, and it sounds like you might, you already have a plan for what
No, this is it, this is it.
What are the priorities that we are gonna see Shirley Weber fighting for the next 4 years?
Well, I think, and no, the next 2 years, we still will be fighting the same battle for the presidency election. We will be fighting those, and we'll continue to try to press and hopefully get more done. We want to make sure that we're pushing out now to make sure that folks vote early, because there's so much attack on voting, and there's so many obstacles that people put in the way. We want to make sure that everybody gets their ballot and that they vote early. Don't wait till the last minute, because our postal service is here, there, and up and down. Vote early. So we've got a big push for this election and any future election to say to everyone, vote early so that we can get this done. That will help immensely in terms of not just reducing time, but making sure that your ballot gets counted. We want to make sure of that so that you're not caught in some glitch of, well, we decided we wouldn't count the last day or whatever the postal service comes up with. Make sure that you do that. So we're going to make sure that that's a part of it. Another part, of course, is that we're working hard, and we've started our outreach efforts this past 2 years with with Janelle, and we want to expand that. We want to expand it beyond just the college students that we have. We have tremendous support from all of our universities. We have about 200 colleges that actually participate in all of our college campaigns on election. We're trying to make sure that this generation picks up the mantle and continues to go forward themselves and with them as well as others. So we are working hard, and we're expanding it. They're involved in the campaign now. We expand it on every election. We want to expand it even more. We want to expand our high school students. We have a number of high school students to work with. So my thing is making sure that we put in place all of these things that help us believe and understand the power of democracy. Those things that I grew up with in the projects, where you learn certain rules and regulations and laws about the 3 houses and the balance of power and all that stuff that you learn, that we instill that in this population. And so we're going to do as much as we can in the next couple of years, not only to fight the battles we have to fight out there and what have you, but instill within this generation and the generations to come those beliefs that your grandparents and others had about the power of democracy and why they need to vote. Because it's hard to every year try to convince people to be an American. You know, to convince you to be in this democracy. We shouldn't have to fight that hard. This democracy is great. People should be looking forward to it when they turn a certain age, that they're gonna do these things, and they're gonna be there. That's what I felt, you know. And so I want to work with young people and help them understand, and we do that now. But I'm hoping in the next 4 years, if we will be able to even instill it into more, so that it's a part of them. And I don't have to worry about, oh, well, she's running because she's running for office. No, I'm not running for office. I'm running to make sure that this country stands, and the things that we believe in are a part of it. And maybe bringing in folks from other countries who actually value this election system and what we have in this country, and see the power of it, and to build that growth that needs to happen. So my goal is to make sure that whenever I leave this office or leave this earth, that folks understand what has been given to them, what they have inherited. A country that is always in the process of making itself better, working hard, respecting every citizen that's here, and valuing it, and making sure that this democracy stands and stands firm, not just for them, but for generations to come.
Well, I love that. I think